The game is over, and now it's time to break down another showdown for Kyle Whittingham and the Utes.
Dampier, play action, sold it! Sold it! Touchdown, Bentley! 1 for 4 on third down. Picked off, going the other way, and Elijah Davis will not come back! 65 yards! We tried to tell you, these corners are ruthless. 4th down, Washington back in the game. Robertson throwing in zone. Josh Cameron. And more electric dance moves here in Waco. Ficklin at quarterback. Will keep Ficklin to the open field. And the freshman can fly straight into the end zone. 67 yards. And Parker, no one was there. He's gonna go untouched. Too easy for Wayshawn Parker. 64 yards. 4-man rush for Utah. It gets there. Robertson nearly tripped. Stays up. Cameron with the adjustment. Cameron to the end zone. How'd he do it? Baylor refuses to go away. 29-yard touchdown. Ficklin in at quarterback. Ficklin with the fake. He will run it. Picks up a block on the right side. Ficklin, the hezzy. Oh, shoves the defender out of the way. Ficklin still motoring. Come on now. The kid's a star. Big bodies out there in this formation. All about power. Although we saw this look on a 3rd and 1 in which Dampier threw for a touchdown. Option, the pitch. The Carter Rogers cuts it back up, and he's in. The power back with the second effort. And will that be enough to put Baylor away? And 3rd down. Goal to go. Dampier. And Wayshawn Parker just toying with his victim. Keaton Thomas saying, come a little closer. I got something for you.
This is the Ute Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome into your Ute Postgame Show. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me. Join us as we break down a 55-28 Utah win at Baylor. Utah continues to roll, Alex. The bye week can't stop them. Another dominant win for the Utes, and that's 3 butt kickings in a row for Kyle Whittingham and his crew, who need to win out. If they want any chance at making the Big 12 championship or the college football playoff, they need to win out. And they have been impressive ever since that BYU loss. So, the guys keep rolling this time on the road.
They keep rolling. And, I don't know if there was any doubts or any maybe a little bit of worry about Utah coming off the bye week, showing a little rust. And I think they got off to a slow start. Defensively, they struggled through a large majority of this game as far as containing and stopping the pass game from Sawyer Robertson. But ultimately, what matters is the 55-28 win. Yeah,
the bye week thing is interesting because they had a lot of momentum after, that win against Cincinnati. And it seemed like they had figured everything out. And then you get the bye week and it's like, okay, we got to have the bye and then go on the road. Is that going to stop all the momentum? And it was a little weird because the defense was uncharacteristically bad today. Like this is the worst defensive performance I've seen from Utah in a very, very long time. Pulling up the total yardage today, 563 yards of offense for Baylor. And I mean, Utah got the job done, right? They got the win, but that is a lot of yardage for Utah to give up. And I don't know if they tried implementing new things out of the bye week or if it's just the health and injuries at the back end showing up. I know, they are dealing with some injuries to safety and corner. Some guys are out for the season. And we're seeing a lot of depth players in there, but regardless, it was scary for Utah on the defensive side today.
I think positively, everybody was talking about Michael Trigg, and Michael Trigg being one of the best tight ends, if not the best tight end in the country. And you hold Michael Trigg to just 3 for 42, which I thought was a positive. But then you look at Josh Cameron, number 34 for Baylor, who has 13 receptions for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then you have Ashton Hawkins, who goes for 7 catches and 119 yards. No touchdowns there, but still. Cameron and Hawkins, man, tonight they had the games of their career.
And Hawkins with the knockout punch.
Quite literally.
No, that was, and we'll get into that later, that ridiculous fight, because that was boneheaded. But Sawyer Robinson, 29 of 58, 430 yards, 3 touchdowns. Now, Utah did have the 2 interceptions, right? Elijah Davis had the pick 6, obviously. And then I'm spacing his name, who had the second one.
Trey Reynolds, man.
Trey Reynolds, yeah. But outside of that, it seemed like Baylor was consistently hitting those 15, 20-yard intermediate shots. And I know the completion percentage wasn't great for Sawyer Robertson, but 430 yards is crazy. This is a Utah pass defense that was, I think they were the best in the league coming into this game.
Yeah, one of the best in the country as well.
They were 156 yards per game coming into this game. Best pass defense in the Big 12, and Baylor drops almost 500 yards through the air through them.
Yeah.
But we knew that's all Baylor could do, right? And ultimately, Utah's defense did hold strong in the red zone, and they forced a turnover on downs. That was huge. But does this defensive performance worry you at all coming down the stretch?
Not really, no. Again, I want to give Utah's defense the benefit of the doubt, right? Coming off the bye week. That is Sawyer Robertson's calling card, right? That's where Sawyer Robertson excels, is being able to throw the ball and being able to make plays through the air. And so I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, right? Coming off the bye week, maybe a little bit rusty. If this is a continuing trend, right? Next week you have a test against Avery Johnson in Kansas State, who today didn't look great. But if Avery Johnson, continues to dice up the secondary the way that we saw Sawyer Robertson do tonight, then I think that's when you start getting into concern territory. I'm sure Morgan Scalley and Sharice Shaw and the defensive side of the ball, they're going to look at that this week, and they're going to do everything they can to shore up the passing defense. But we'll give them the benefit of the doubt for coming off the bye, I think.
Yeah, and it's not like Kansas State and Kansas have Sawyer Robertson at quarterback. That dude's one of the leaders in the entire country as far as passing, and of course he's a top Big 12. So he's the best quarterback that Utah's going to see all season. And then the 2 wide receivers were crazy. The one-handed catch by Cameron was just ridiculous, right? And that's kind of the defense that Utah's been playing all season. And that's what you get when you play a lot of man and when you're really aggressive with your pass rushes. You are going to give up big plays. And all season, for the most part, the opposing teams have not been able to connect on those big plays. And tonight, Baylor was able to. So that's why they're able to put up ridiculous numbers through the air. But again, holding them to 28 points is what matters. And I don't want to overstate that.
And I think that's where you have to give Sawyer Robertson that credit, right? Utah was bringing the pressure. They were still continuing to bring the blitz and trying to get to the quarterback. They did a couple of times, but for the most part, Sawyer Robertson did a good job of getting the ball out quick when he did, and obviously making those big plays. A lot of yaks in this one for number 34. And I think ultimately that's Utah. They did bring the pressure. They just didn't get to Sawyer Robertson quick enough, I think.
There were a few plays where it was close, right? And
yeah.
There were some, again, the completion percentage was not great for Robertson. There were a lot of plays where Utah was getting into the backfield and forcing him to throw off platform. And he definitely made some mistakes in the pocket, but man, those receivers were able to capitalize when they got the ball in their hands. So I am curious to see how, as you mentioned, Shaw and Scalley are going to kind of hammer that down the stretch. But again, the final 2 games, Kansas State and Kansas, those guys are not going to kill you through the air the way that Baylor can. So all in all, I mean, a good performance from Utah's offense is what allows them to play poorly on defense tonight, which is so weird to say. Like, I can't remember the last time that Utah has ever won a game like this. Just ridiculous on offense. And I got to pull up the time of possession. Yeah, Baylor led 33-27 in this one. But Utah didn't need the ball. This was such an uncharacteristic win for Utah. Of course, he had the 3 touchdowns over 60 yards. It was crazy.
It's the way Sean Parker going for 64. It's Bert Ficklin going for 2 long touchdowns, right? The second one, I think, being the longer one in the 74-yard run. When the broadcasters, when the commentators said heading into the fourth quarter that was Utah's first trip to the red zone, that blew my mind, right? You're 35 point. You have 35 points up at that point, heading into the fourth quarter, and that's your first red zone trip. And then, of course, you think back and Wayshawn Parker had some big runs. Bert Ficklin had some big runs, and that's ultimately why Utah didn't even get into the red zone up until that moment.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason, I mean, and you got to give credit to those guys making plays. I mean, especially for Birdman to come in off of the bench, and we're seeing him utilized more and more, right? When they call him in for special plays and special packages, but you're cold coming in, and to consistently take it to the house for explosive touchdowns.
Yep.
That is a special player right there that Utah has in Bird Ficklin. And tonight's not the first time that we've seen it either, is the thing about this. Like, this dude has done it every single time that he gets in a game. He does something crazy, something spectacular. And tonight was no different, except I guess tonight was different in that he did it twice instead of just once. This was crazy.
Tonight, it was different, too, because I felt like he brought in good relief for Devin Dampier, who I think had a little bit of a shaky start to the game, Christian, and maybe you agree, but Devin Dampier, it seemed like Utah was trying to force the passing game those first couple of drives. Devin Dampier made some questionable decisions, and I thought, bringing in Bert Ficklin and kind of having a different look, I thought gave good relief to Devin Dampier and ultimately made some, like we're talking about, made some big plays.
This was a really bad game from Dampier. To put it frankly, 6 of 13. You're only being asked to throw 13 times in this game. And they said it again on the TV. A receiver didn't have a catch until the fourth quarter.
And it came from Bird.
And it came from Bird. It was not Dampier. And there were some plays that I liked. Like, I thought the RPO where Dampier, it looked like a quarterback run, and then he throws a little pop pass to I think it was Bentley over the middle. Yeah. I think things like that are really creative, right? But when you're asking Devin Dampier to run like a true pass set, like it just doesn't work. And it hasn't worked all season. You had a bye to try and figure your stuff out, and it's just continuously not working. And again, you should still beat Kansas State and Kansas down the stretch. But if you do make it to the Big 12 championship, if you do make it to the college football playoff, this is not good enough quarterback play that frankly that Utah would want to put out in front of the entire country to see. I mean, it's just not. And I think we kind of saw that towards the end of the game with Bert Ficklin starting to come in more and more, and even Nate Johnson getting a couple runs there. Should have had the touchdown, whatever. But I think they are starting to become more and more comfortable with truly splitting reps between these two quarterbacks, because Dampier hasn't been anything special.
And it could cause some issues for some defenses as they try to prepare for Utah, right? Because you also have to take into consideration and prepare for Bert Ficklin. And maybe that's something you continue to see Utah do down the stretch is continue to have this 2 quarterback look and kind of switch off Devin Dampier and Bert Ficklin like they did tonight against Baylor. Obviously, when Bert Ficklin's able to come in, provide the spark that he did, it definitely warrants some playing time for Bird.
Oh yeah, it's you have a guy with, what was his final rushing stat line? 6 carries for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns. 2 of those runs being over 60 yards. I mean, the first one, right, was 67 yards, a career long, and then his other long one broke that career long by 10 more yards. Like that, you can't keep that on the bench. And Bird isn't a great passer either, and that's why they don't just fully give the starting job to him yet. But if it continues to look like this, they're going to have a conversation definitely in the summer. And I don't know if that's something that you do right now when Utah has won several games in a row now and they're rolling and they're in position to do something great. I mean, the last thing you want to do is completely kill your offense by making a change at the most important position. No matter how good Bird Ficklin is playing, a change like that could completely disrupt the leadership in the team. So if Utah doesn't make a change, that's why. But it's a cause for concern.
Yeah. And I think that's probably going to be the topic of conversation throughout the course of the week on social media from the Utah fans is going to be it's the question that they asked themselves after the Colorado game.
Yeah.
It's the question
after the Arizona State game.
Right. Is there a quarterback? Is there a quarterback issue brewing at Utah? But again, I don't think I'm there yet. But as Bird Ficklin continues to have plays like this and continues to have performances like this, I think it's something that you start to consider, especially for the summer.
One thing that I have no idea what was going on with Baylor's coaching staff and defensive approach coming into this, especially given how poor that Utah was throwing the ball. Between Dampier and Ficklin, they were 8 of 16 for 103 yards, right?
Yeah.
So not a threat through the air whatsoever. But Baylor, for some reason, refused to just throw 8 guys in the box, especially on that Wayshawn Parker run. Like they kept showing the replay. There were 5 guys in the box.
Which, I mean,
for this Utah team that can literally only run the ball.
Great news for Wayshawn, man.
Yeah.
Wayshawn probably saw that and said, yep, feed me more, man. Wayshawn Parker, again, I think Utah's, we talked about it a little bit this morning, Christian, but I think one of the reasons why Utah's been able to put up the offensive performances that we've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks is because you're finally seeing a true unlocked Wayshawn Parker. 15 carries tonight for 129 yards, obviously as the big 64-yard run for the touchdown, but anytime that Wayshawn would get in between the tackles, he'd run it right up the middle. You were getting like 7-8 yards a pop, man, and that bodes really well. Bodes really well for that rushing attack, and bodes really well for Wayshawn Parker. I think finally this is the Wayshawn that I think Utah fans were expecting coming into the season. He's figured it out, man. He's unlocked, and it's fun to watch this sophomore reach another level.
15 carries for 129. That is 8.6 yards a carry. And that touchdown that he had, his second one, the receiving touchdown, like plays like that, when you're watching that, he just looks special. And I know that that's lazy and I know that that's cliche, but there are some times where you watch a player and they just have it. And Wayshawn Parker has it. And that's why they were so excited to bring him in. And that's why I was a little bit confused that he wasn't playing like this earlier on in the season. And there were always flashes, right? Against Wyoming, he had the long touchdown that he took out of the backfield on a swing pass and he housed it. So there have been flashes, but to your point, it's been the last 3 games where, I mean, that's 3 100-yard games for Wayshawn Parker in a row now.
Yep.
And he is just making special plays over and over and over again. And then you remind yourself that, yes, he is only a sophomore. It's huge. And I truthfully, I hope that Utah can retain him. I would imagine that they're going to do everything they can to retain him, because that's when Utah's at their best, is when they have a star running back. And honestly, if Wayshawn Parker comes back next year and continues to build on top of this, he has the potential to be one of the best Utah running backs of the past 5-10 years. I mean, I'm talking on the level of Zach Moss and Devontae Booker and those guys. Like, he can be that.
He certainly has that potential. Certainly has that ceiling. We're seeing it now. We're seeing it now, and for him to be at this point of the season, right? It's a stretch run. You're going to need everybody to dig deep and make sure that you're fully prepared for this final run where you have to win out. They mentioned it at the top of the broadcast, right? Every game from here on out for Utah is a playoff game. And that's kind of the mentality you have to have heading down this stretch. And so for him to be unlocked now at the most important and the most crucial time for Utah, I think that's amazing, and I hope that he's able to continue that workload that he has right now for Utah.
Daniel Bray, 4 carries for 10 yards tonight. Are you surprised that we didn't see more of him, or was it just a matter of not really, the game script kind of went away from that and they didn't really need to dial up more Daniel Bray?
It felt like the game script kind of went away from it. Again, going back to a little bit what we were talking about, where Baylor just absolutely refused to stack the box. I feel when you have the numbers advantage up the middle, just continue to run up the middle with the guy that's giving you the production, and that was Wayshawn Parker tonight. There was no need for the jet sweeps, right? There was a couple at the beginning of the game, and they didn't really get anywhere.
Yeah.
And so I would have absolutely loved to see Bray come in and take some runs up the middle, but again, right to the hot hand. If Wayshawn Parker is the one giving you that production, then that's, I feel like in this game and in this situation, that's okay.
Yeah. And that's going to happen sometimes, especially if Parker does continue to be a stud. Then it's just, you got to feed him. He's a type of player you have to
feed Wayshawn, man.
Yeah, feed Wayshawn. Let's take a break. Coming up next, we will continue to break this thing down. We are live on 97.5. We're also live on YouTube, on Facebook, on X. 1280 is currently being used for the Utah State post game. So, but if you have any reaction, any comments you want to give thoughts on this game, let us know in the comments, and we'd be happy to get to that. Stick with us. We'll be back in about 3 minutes. It's the Ute Postgame Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is the Ute Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Your Ute Postgame Show 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Utah picks up the win over Baylor, 55-28. Alex, the story of this game was Utah's offense. Obviously, not only that, but it was the big plays over and over and over and over again. You had a 67-yard run from Bird Ficklin. You had a pick six from Elijah Davis. You had Wayshawn Parker with a 64-yard touchdown run, and then Bird Ficklin again with a 74-yard touchdown run. Again, brought this up earlier. It has been a long time since Utah has been able to play like this and put up points like this. A really, really unique win for the Utes.
Absolutely, and again, when you're scoring up like this and you're putting up points like this, I think it bodes well for you as far as the eyes of the committee, right? They've talked about the style points, they've talked about looking at those types of metrics, and so I feel like a win like this certainly helps Utah. It would probably help a little bit more if your defense also was able to hold them a little bit better.
Well, I'm really glad you bring that up. I mean, that's not 28 points isn't bad. As long as they don't look at the total yardage, the committee's not going to care. And I honestly don't think they look that deep, right?
Maybe not. I think for Utah's sake, I think they're hoping not.
No, honestly, if you look at 3 wins in a row now for the Utes, right? But if you look at their past 5 wins overall, it's been 48-14, 42-10, 53-7, 45-14, 55-28. So that's 5 wins where you are scoring 40 or more points and holding your opponent to, less than 30, right?
Yeah.
And exactly right, Alex. That is what the committee looks at when they decide how far to move up teams, when they decide who to let in and who not to. Utah's right on the bubble right now, sitting at number 13, and teams are going to drop out. And other teams are going to rise, right? Because other teams won. So for Utah, not only do you want to win, you want to win big. You want to win like this.
Yeah.
You want to continue this. And it's weird because there's the whole gamesmanship thing of running up the score. And I've never really cared about that, but a lot of old school guys do, right? But that's all out the window now. When you're talking about trying to make the college football playoff, you need to put as many points on the scoreboard as you possibly can in the 60 minutes that you have on the field. So it's nice that Utah has an offense that's able to do it. And it's kind of amazing that they are only able to run the ball and they're still able to win games like this and put up this many points.
Obviously, aside from the losses this season for Utah, the defenses have really struggled how to slow down this offense, man. Obviously putting up over 40 points in the last 5 wins, that's just, goes to show how much defenses have struggled to contain this Utah rushing attack and the way that they do it, right? You have the Wildcats to Wayshawn Parker, you have Tevin Dampier lining up wide and Bird Ficklin subbing in and making big plays. Like it's hard for defenses to be prepared for that, and you're seeing Utah take full advantage of it again, putting up 55 in this one.
Wayshawn Parker was asked about this earlier on in the year, but this Utah team is going to have a chance to break the all-time rushing record for the program. Not in NCAA history, but in Utah football history. And another 380 yards tonight is going to go a long way towards that. And that's just thinking about what Utah football has traditionally been, right? They have always been a ground and pound team for the most part. So to know that has been their identity under Kyle Whittingham, and to know that they are on the verge of breaking an all-time record like that, it's special. And no matter what happens at the end of the season, this Utah team is going to be remembered for what they're doing to these opponents. And of course, you do have the 2 losses on the year. That's always going to hold you back, especially if you don't end up making the playoff or the championship. There's always going to be what ifs, but considering everything coming into this is a really special Utah team, and we are witnessing really an all-time rushing team.
Absolutely. And again, if from a Utah fan perspective, or for the Utah fans perspective, it feels like this is a major step in the right direction from where you were last season, and even the last 2 years, right? Where you weren't able to really get an offense going. You weren't able really to move the ball down the field. Now it feels, and last year specifically, man, this team really struggled in scoring some touchdowns in the rushing attack. And this year it's been no problem. And Jason Beck has come in, has completely revitalized, revamped this offense, and it's fun to watch.
It is, and especially when you're housing 60-yard touchdowns 3 times a game.
It also helps, man, when you have a scoring defense like they do. Another pick 6 in the books, ultimately in the night with 2 interceptions, 2 turnovers, but that defense also feels finally like they are as opportunistic as they have been in the past, and they're showing it with those pick 6s.
And it feels like it's been a while since a pick 6. I don't think they've had one.
Jackson Benny.
If I'm wrong, since Jackson Benny, right?
I believe so.
So it's been a really long time. It feels like, I mean, it's been like a month and a half, I guess. But anyways, to have guys that can put points on the board on the defensive side is something special. Unfortunately, Elijah Davis did have one of the dumber plays in the game. Got to talk about this because that's something that really frustrated me, and I'm sure it frustrated Kyle Whittingham. And it's honestly one of those things that, like, even when you have a near 30-point victory, Kyle Whittingham's probably going to be in a bad mood in the post-game press conference because of this. And honestly, he has every right to be. I would be. Yeah. I would be absolutely frustrated because, again, when you talk about a team that is walking on very thin ice and you have to win every game down the stretch and you have to blow your opponents out, the last thing you can do, the last thing you want your guys doing is stupid things like starting fights. And I don't care what was said. You do not throw punches during a football game. You don't.
No, you don't. And I think that is just leading up to what the night was for Elijah Davis. Before that pick 6, Scooby Davis was struggling, man. He was getting beat one-on-one. That number 6, I forget his name. Hawkins was making big, good plays down the field. Him and Sir Robertson were connecting downfield. He was making big plays on Scooby Davis. Obviously, Scooby Davis comes back, gets the pick 6. Great. It felt like that should have given not only Davis some confidence, but the defense some confidence. But in reality, it was the passing game in which they struggled all night long. And then it just kind of boiled down to that moment where he then scores the touchdown, gets up, starts talking smack. And of course, Scooby Davis, we see him initiate with a swing at Hawkins. And then it kind of leads to just a moment of emotions boiling over for both sides.
Yeah, and I'm glad it didn't turn into something bigger because for a second it looked like it was going to, like, bench is clearing. But credit to, I should have looked back and seen the numbers and who it was, but there were multiple Utes players that literally grabbed Davis and like yanked him away. Like, credit to those guys because that's real leadership. Unfortunately, Davis just had a lapse. I don't know what it was. Again, I don't know what was said that led to that, but now you're ejected from this football game. Don't know the terms of if he's going to miss any time. I guess you assume that he's probably going to miss a half next week.
If it occurs in the second half, the ejection should extend to the first half of the next game as well.
And that sucks because, again, I brought up earlier, like, this is you got to remember this defensive backfield is banged up, right? You've got several players that are out for the season. Nate Ritchie, Blake Cotton, like a lot of these guys that were supposed to be full-time players are out, and you're already having to rely on depth. And then you have one of your players miss a half because he had a dumb penalty, a dumb ejection, which that's something that is completely controllable. And now you're going to have to play a half of football without him. Again, Kansas State isn't a team that you would worry about coming in and throwing for 350, 400 yards, but maybe they will. Like if they realize that Utah's back end is really banged up or missing guys, and now they're missing another starter, like, they're probably going to try and open up the passing plays.
And I mean, you're going to watch film from this game, right? And you're going to, especially if you're Kansas State, right? You're going to watch film for this game you're going to see what excuse me. You're going to see what Sawyer Robertson did downfield all game long, and you're going to take your shots. You're going to want to take your shots as well. And so I would not be surprised if Avery Johnson, especially early in that game next week, comes out swinging and comes out trying to get some deep balls on this Utah secondary.
Now, obviously, Kansas State doesn't have the receiving talent that Baylor has. I mean, these two guys were crazy special tonight, Cameron and Hawkins. Hawkins, by the way, ejected too, obviously, so not sure what that's going to do for Baylor. And this is a Baylor team that's undergoing insane turmoil right now. Their athletic director is taking a leave of absence. I think everybody in Waco wants Dave Aranda out. You mentioned this morning that if Baylor comes in and gets their butts kicked tonight at home, Dave Aranda might not have a job on Monday. So we'll see what happens there. And then you've got players getting in fights on the field. And again, I know that it was Davis that started it, but Hawkins responded with a punch and he gets ejected too. So this is a Baylor team. I think that play kind of encapsulated what Baylor is right now, because they are a very talented football team, a lot of very talented players, but it's the turmoil that's keeping them from being good.
And then you also have the play a couple touchdowns later, right, too, on the other end where Utah scores a touchdown. They get an unsportsmanlike because they were trying to start stuff again. And again, I think that's just emotions boiling over for Baylor in the sense that they were coming into the season with a lot of preseason expectations. I think how they ended the season last year also kind of ballooned that a little bit. And then, you have a great quarterback like Sawyer Robertson. Like, this is one of those teams that at the beginning of the season, we talked about it too, Christian, of them potentially contending for this conference. And the reality is it's been a disappointing season. It's not been for Baylor. It's not been the season that I think anybody down there in Waco expected and certainly didn't want. And so it's just kind of those emotions now coming out to the surface because of everything that's happening with the AD, with the noise surrounding Dave Aranda's job, and then of course Utah going down scoring 55 on your defense.
Yeah, really. I mean, honestly, not a surprising win for Utah because of all this stuff that's been going on with Baylor. I'm not surprised Utah won. I'm not surprised that they blew the doors off of Baylor, right?
Yeah. No, I'm not surprised by the win. I think, and even this morning we all predicted the win for Utah, but I think more so it's the fashion of the win that I think there are some things about the win that did take me by surprise, like the fact that you couldn't get your receivers involved in the passing attack, man. It wasn't until the fourth quarter we talked about it earlier, where Ryan Davis gets his first catch, and that was the first catch made by a wide receiver for Utah, and then of course the secondary getting beat the way that they did tonight.
Which, again, I don't know if that's ever happened for Utah.
I'm trying to remember the ESPN graphic at halftime. That was so they had 362 total yards, I believe it was, coming out of the halftime, heading into that third quarter, and that was the first time Utah's given up that many yards since 2022. So it's been a minute since Utah, since secondary gave up a performance like this.
Probably the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, maybe.
Want to thank everybody for tuning in right now. We are live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're live on X. If you're a Utah fan or, another fan tuning in, sometimes we get some snipers in there. If you have anything to say, any reaction to this game, let us know. Drop a comment. We want to get to some fan reaction. That's always fun to get people's thoughts on this, especially with Utah on a 3-game win streak right now. Always love to hear what people have to say. And again, some of the storylines from this game, we've been hitting Utah with several big plays to put this one away. Devin Dampier with another, I don't know how to classify it. I don't want to say poor performance, but I think subpar is.
It certainly wasn't his best. Certainly was not his best. I think subpar would be a good way to put it. And I was looking at some things on Twitter when we were coming back from the break, and it looks like one of the comments. We'll get to the comments hopefully here soon from Kyle Whittingham, but one of the comments that he did make was that Devin Dampier was banged up and hobbled in this game.
It gets to a point, man.
Yeah.
Do you wonder if he's ever going to have a bad game and they say that he was healthy?
Probably not.
I don't know.
No, probably not. I think, of course, you protect your quarterback. You give him the benefit of the doubt. But it did sounds like he was a little bit beat up tonight. Wanted to stay out there. wanted to be out there, but I mean, certainly in this game, Bird came in and provided that spark where Devin struggled tonight.
He did have that moment early in the game where they said he sprinted to the locker room.
Right.
And then that's when Bird came in and he housed his first one, the 64-yard touchdown or whatever, 67, excuse me. And then Devin Dampier came in the next series. And I made the joke that he had a Paul Pierce moment, right? The infamous Paul Pierce with the wheelchair.
Yeah.
You can look it up if you don't catch the reference. But I was making a joke there, but maybe something did get tweaked. I don't know. But the fact that he sprinted to the locker room is weird. That would tell me it's maybe an upper body injury. I didn't see any tape anywhere on his hands or anything like that. I'd have to look closer, but I don't really know. I guess if he was banged up, we're probably not going to get any details on it besides he was banged up. But
yeah, and I think that's unfortunate for Utah to come out of this game with the Devin Dampier hobbled up, especially coming off the bye, man.
Yeah,
it felt like coming out of the bye week, it was finally time to get Devin Dampier to as close as 100% as he possibly could. And then, of course, now that kind of gets dampened by Whittingham's comments of him saying that he's a little bit hobbled.
Yeah. Fortunately, though, as you brought up, I mean, Bird Ficklin came in and played phenomenally. Now, Baylor does have one of the worst rush defenses in the Big 12. Second worst, to be precise. 177 yards per game Baylor had been giving up. And, of course, Utah doubles that, 380. So, yeah, we knew that Utah was going to be able to run the football today. Nobody was expecting this. 3 rushing touchdowns of over 60 yards. That's pretty crazy.
It's pretty crazy, but again, it's great for Utah. It's great for the rushing attack. You go up, you put up another 380 yards on the ground. Bird Fickham comes in, has the 2 big plays. Wayshawn has the 1 big play on the touchdown as well. Interesting too. Nakar Rogers coming off the bench also gets 2 touchdowns on the night. I mean, that's 5 total touchdowns for Utah on the ground tonight. That rushing attack is no joke, man. It is by far the best in the Big 12 at the moment, and it is by far, or not by far, but one of the best in the conference. They were coming into this game just behind the military academies, just behind Navy and Air Force at number 3 in the country.
Wow, that's crazy. They have a real chance, and they're going to run all over Kansas State and all over Kansas. They legitimately have a real chance to finish as the best rushing team in the country this season.
Yeah, and you know what, man? I think for sure they'll beat that record.
The team record,
yeah, that you were talking about earlier. I think especially if they continue to run the ball the way that they're doing so at the moment, there's no doubt in my mind that Utah will be able to reach that feat.
Pretty crazy, man. Pretty impressive stuff from the Utes over the past 5 wins. I do want to take a look around the Big 12 and touch on some of the other scores. Right now, BYU just scored. They are up 24-3 over TCU. Arizona State had a close win over West Virginia. I think that is the most impactful win as far as what pertains to Utah, right? Well, and Arizona beat Cincinnati too.
Yeah.
So if you're looking, at what could get Utah into the Big 12 championship game, they still need a loss from BYU or Texas Tech. But there are scenarios where Arizona State won today. Arizona State's still alive, technically.
They're
right?
still alive, man. So every team with 2 losses at the moment is not out of the race. Some of them, obviously, it'll be a little bit more difficult for them to get there due to tiebreaker scenarios. But for the most part, it seems like teams with the 2 losses, they're not out of the race yet.
No. Essentially, if you're a Utah fan wanting Utah in the Big 12 championship, the best thing for the Utes would be for Utah to win out and BYU to lose to Cincinnati.
Yep. Because
that would put Utah in the Big 12 championship.
Because as far as the tiebreakers go, as far as the strength of schedule goes, right? If you beat Cincinnati, that you played against Cincinnati, they're able to get the win against BYU. That helps out your strength of schedule, and of course, in a tie situation like that, that would bode really, really well for Utah.
Yeah, and Utah also has the win over Arizona State, which matters a lot too. But the interesting thing, Alex, is they kept mentioning too, Utah actually has worse odds at making the college football playoff if they go to the Big 12 championship. So that's where I'm kind of curious to get Utah fans' opinions, and I hope people chime in. Would you rather have Utah get a shot at the Big 12 title, or would you rather have them kind of backdoor their way into the college football playoff? Because if you go to the Big 12 title game, you have to win that game to get to the playoffs. If Utah loses the Big 12 title game and picks up a third loss, they're not getting into the college football playoff. They're not.
Right.
Right. But there are scenarios where Utah wins out the season, and let's just say BYU loses to Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship. In that scenario, there's a chance that Utah gets into the playoff, even though they didn't make the Big 12 title game. So I am curious to I'm curious to see what Utah fans have to say on there on which one they would rather have, a Big 12 championship appearance or a college football playoff berth. I would think the playoffs, right? But it would be nice to have a shot at the Big 12 title as well.
It's certainly still in the conversation, right, as far as the playoff goes. I think even now with the expanded format, right, with the 12-team playoff, teams with 2 losses still have a decent shot at making it in. And in Utah's case, they'll need a little bit of help, right, from a couple of SEC teams. They'll need a little bit of help maybe from teams playing against Notre Dame and stopping Notre Dame. But there is a possibility for Utah to backdoor their way into the championship, into the playoff. Coming into this game, one of the things that I found interesting too is the ESPN puts up their metrics. They put up their predictions, right? They put up their FPI and put it all into a college football playoff predictor. And coming into this one, Utah's chance at making the playoff was a little bit under 37%, whereas BYU had 26%. And so ESPN's making the playoff, yes. And so the predictor right now and the metrics, they still favor this Utah team, which again, going off the metrics that the college football playoff uses, that's a good sign for Utah.
Yeah. At Car Wash Channel, chiming in on YouTube, really appreciate it. Really appreciate the comments. He says, or they say, I rather have BYU versus Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game. Instead, there's no chance we can win against Texas Tech. So that makes total sense. I get it. Texas Tech is a really tough freaking football team, and Utah really struggled against them. And yeah, if you think the college football playoff berth is more important, then that's what you want, right? Speaking of the playoff, though, Utah definitely, again, sitting at the edge at 13. There were a couple teams in front of them that all eyes were on today, specifically Oklahoma playing Alabama. Oklahoma at number 11, they got the win over number 4 Alabama, so that's a bad sign for the Utes. You would have wanted number 11 to lose, right? So they would drop. They get the win there. They're going to rise. And Alabama, I don't think, is going to fall out of the top 10, but we will see. But Texas did lose to Georgia. Texas was at 10, so they are probably going to fall behind Utah. That's a good sign. We will see.
I think early college football playoff predictions. If both Utah and obviously Utah won, but if BYU also pulls off the win against TCU, it's very possible that heading into the rankings next week, Utah and BYU are the first and second team out of the college football playoff. Which again,
they still need to get a G5 school in, right? Even if Utah's ranked at 12, that doesn't mean that they would be projected in. They technically have to be at 10 or 11. Because of the other automatic bids.
I think if you're a Utah fan looking at this, I think if you're wanting to comfortably look and say that you might make the playoff, I think 9 or 10 is the goal. If you can make it to that 9th spot, that 10th spot, you have a really, really great shot at making it in.
Yeah, and again, stacking these dominant wins, man. That's all you can do. Not only win, you don't want to beat Kansas State in a 28-25 game. You want to beat the heck out of Kansas State the same way you beat up Baylor, the same way you beat up Cincinnati, the same way you beat up Colorado. And again, with Kansas, you want to repeat that down the stretch. You want to finish the season with 5 wins in a row by 25 or more points. Frankly, that is the only way Utah can get into the playoff. And it's going to be close. They're going to need some help, but I mean, they're pulling their part. That is for certain. Kyle Whittingham has his guys dialed in, and they know what they have to do, and they're doing it.
100%. If they could continue any, any semblance of this performance, shore up that passing defense, and the committee will favor that. You continue to put up the points, you continue to put up the metrics. The committee this season is obviously looking at that a little bit more, and so they'll favor that. And again, that helps out Utah a lot when you're able to pull off these type of performances.
Speaking of favoring, they got Mark Harlan on the panel now, huh?
Oh man.
Kidding, guys. Kidding. It's a joke. No, that is interesting. I mean, it would cause controversy if Utah got in and BYU didn't. But of course,
there's still a lot of football left, man. It depends on what happens with both of those teams, really.
But you know what? And to be honest, and to stop with the jokes, right? If Utah continues to win in this fashion, they deserve to be in the playoff, whether Mark Harlan's on the panel or not. So yeah. I do want to make that clear. I don't think it's rigged by any means. If Utah were to get in, now if Utah were to lose a game and still get in, then we can start having some conversations, yes. Right? But no, if Utah continues to play like this and win like this, then they deserve every chance to be in there.
Yep, and they'll have it again. If they continue to put up these performances, the metrics favor Utah. And so that'll help you position yourself in a better spot come that final ranking after the college or after the championship weekend.
Yeah, we'll see, man. We will see. Two games left for the Utes. It's coming to a close real fast.
Oh yeah,
it really is. Let's take a quick break. Got to take one more break, and then we will wrap up this show. Hoping to get to Kyle Whittingham's post-game comments. We'll see if we can get to those in time. We will see. Just a heads up, we are now live on 1280. The Utah State post-game show has wrapped, so we're live on 97.5 FM, 1280 AM, as well as YouTube and Facebook and X. If you have anything to say, if you want to chime in, let us know. Drop a comment. We'd be happy to get to some fan reaction before we wrap this thing up as well. So stick with us. We're going to take a quick 3-minute break, and then we will be right back and wrap this thing up. It's the Ute Post Game Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
This is the U Postgame Show on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
97.5 KSL Sports Zone. It's the U Postgame Show. I'm Christian Esparza, joined by Alex Napoles. As always, every Saturday we are here, Alex, breaking down Utah football. And today, as well as the past two games before that, it's now 3 in a row. It's wins for Utah. All they do is win as of late. Looking good for the Utes. And we were worried about the bye week kind of breaking up momentum, but Utah was able to hold strong and continue to not just win, but beat up their opponents. And it's looking good for them.
It is looking good for them. And again, as we were talking about last segment, right before we went to the break, this will certainly help their push to the playoff, their push for their playoff hopes. A win down there in Waco of not only keeps you alive in the hunt for a Big 12 championship, but it keeps you alive in a hunt for a big conference, or excuse me, for a playoff berth. And so everything's still on the table for Utah as we head into the final two games of the season. Yeah,
everything is still on the table. And after that BYU loss, I mean, I got made fun of by people for saying that Utah was still alive. And look at us now, right? Look at me now. No,
it helps out, man. It helps out when the Big 12 conference, man, is so unpredictable and is a mess. Yes. We saw it be a mess last year. We anticipated it to be a mess again this year, and so far it is shaping out that way. And now you'll have next week a potential game to kind of put that conversation to rest, right? If obviously Utah has to handle their business, but that BYU Cincinnati game might be the final. We'll have the final say on who makes it to that championship game.
Yeah, and we'll see. And there's honestly a scenario where Utah might not even want to go to the Big 12 championship game, as we talked about last segment. And if you missed it, we're going to post this post-game show on all your podcasting platforms, so you can go find that conversation. But essentially, if Utah were to make the Big 12 championship game and lose, they're not going to the playoff with a third loss, right? Yeah. So there is a scenario where if the playoff is more important to you want BYU to win out, you want Utah to win out, and then you want some of the other teams in the top 10 to lose, and Utah would hopefully rise in that situation. Getting back to this game tonight, Alex, one of Utah's biggest problems was the inability to throw the ball on offense, and this has been a consistent problem for Devin Dampier.
Yeah.
6 of 13 on the night for 80 yards for Dampier. He did have the 2 touchdowns. He has been, I will give him flowers there, he has been excellent in the red zone. Excellent all season long. So you got to give him credit there. But outside of there, man, they cannot do anything through the air. A receiver did not have a catch until the fourth quarter. It was all running backs and tight ends up until then. What do you think is going wrong with this pass offense? And do you think there's any remedy over the final 2 games and into a potential postseason run? Or do you think this is kind of what they have to live with?
Well, first of all, I think looking at this game, right, looking at the kind of under a microscope for this game, specifically, I think Baylor it did a good job covering Utah's receivers, right, and forcing Dampier into making quick decisions, making some interesting decisions, right, especially early on in that game. Credit to Baylor's defense in that sense. Wide receivers, I think, all season have struggled to create that separation, the separation that the quarterbacks need and the separation that the quarterbacks want in order to be able to get that ball downfield and be successful in the passing game. And I think ultimately it comes down to the wide receivers, right? If your wide receiver is struggling to create that separation, that's, I think, plays a big part as to why Utah struggles to pass the ball down the field. Also, it doesn't help when your quarterback is 18%, I think they said on the broadcast, and then he passes 20 yards down the field. They said that early in the broadcast, right? And that kind of stuck out to me in thinking, wow, Utah really doesn't have a deep threat at the moment. That's something I hope that Utah is able to hammer down this upcoming transfer portal, right? I think in order for you to be successful, not only in the Big 12, but also, I mean, just in the grand scheme of things, right? In the grand scheme of college football, you're going to have to want to find them a little bit more balance. We've talked about it too a little bit earlier in the postgame show. If you stop that Utah rushing attack, they struggle, right? There's not really deep threats on this team that can create that separation and get you big plays downfield. We've seen it a couple times from Ryan Davis, but it's been inconsistent. That's something I think Utah's going to have to hammer down the transfer portal this upcoming offseason.
You would hope so, because they really have not had a good receiver in a long time, right? I
Yeah.
know Devon Vele was good, right? But even like he made it to the NFL, but it didn't even seem like he was a star at the college level. And I know it's not really Utah's identity, right? To be a team that is known for throwing the ball, but
It's not, no. But in a situation when you're playing a team like Texas Tech, who is that great at stopping the run, right? Who
yeah,
is that dominant at stopping a run game, and you're also playing from behind, right? You go back to that Rice Eccles game up here with Texas Tech, and Utah's inability to move the ball downfield. One, because they couldn't run the ball, and two,
yeah,
because they had no deep threat. They couldn't get the ball downfield. Obviously, later too, we learned Devin Dampier's hobbled, but
allegedly.
regardless, right? Regardless, it's been something that we've seen from Utah all season long is the difficulty to find open receivers and receivers to force that separation downfield.
Yeah. And again, like even going back to when Utah was at its peak a few years ago, talking about making the Rose Bowls and winning the Pac-12 championships, like those teams with Cam Rising, they were at their best when they were throwing to the tight ends. So even again, like Utah has struggled to find good receivers and involve receivers in the passing game, even when they had a quarterback who could throw the ball.
Right, and I don't mean this as a knock to Dallin Bentley, because I think Dallin Bentley's done well for what he is and what he's got. But even right now, they don't really have a Dalton Kincaid type tight end. They don't have a Brant Keithy type tight end. Maybe you might get that right in the future with the JJ Buchanan, who I think we saw a lot of bright things from him, and we've seen a lot of bright things from JJ here in his first season with Utah. But even then, you don't have a Keithy threat. You don't have a Kincaid threat as far as the tight end position goes. Maybe, that's also something that Utah needs to address this offseason in the transfer portal.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I like Bentley and Buchanan. I really do. And I think that they have the skill set that Utah needs. Again, I think more of it is honestly on the quarterback, not being able to hit them consistently. And again, they only threw it 13 times tonight, right? So you're not going to have anybody putting up huge numbers, but the completion percentage was low. So we'll see. But I want to get to Kyle Whittingham's post-game conference. He has wrapped up at the podium. We have the sound. I want to hear what he has to say following this big win over Baylor.
Okay, proud of our guys. There was a lot of back and forth there for a while, but we just kept at it and answered the bell every time. And credit Baylor, they're a scrappy team, and the quarterback's a real weapon. It's the best receiving corps we've seen all year. There's no question about that. Tight ends outstanding, and so they got a lot going for them, particularly on offense. But our guys were dialed in tonight. Didn't have our best outing defensively as far as yardage given up, but it's passing yards are different than rushing yards. If you throw for over 400, you have less than a 50-50 chance to win. That's statistically proven, and so just proud of the way that the whole team hung in there. Bird Ficklin was probably the biggest catalyst for us when we needed it. He provided 2 huge runs for us, and the guy's just a really good football player. I don't know what to say. He's got a bright future, as I've said several times before, and he's just really provides a spark for us. Wayshawn Parker did a nice job. They went over 100 yards again, and he's really motivated to do that because whenever he does it, he gets to wear those pink cleats again the next week. And so I've made a deal with him, and so he gets to see him in pink cleats next week. But thought our defense, even though we gave up some stuff, played well on third down, held them to below right around 30%, which is good defense. Ran the ball for almost 400 yards, which has kind of been our calling card this year. We're second or third in the country rushing the football, and that offensive line is a huge reason why we're able to do that week in and week out. And credit the way they played. Got decent pressure on the quarterback, not great, but enough to make it a little bit uncomfortable for him. A couple interceptions, pick six. One was a pick six. That was a big play at that time, and so a lot of good things. A lot of things in that game that for both sides that they did well, but we did enough to get the win. So questions.
Kyle, is this the most unique win you've had at Utah in quite some time in terms of the defensive struggles and that?
I'd have to go back and really look at it, but it's the most unique win, I guess you could say, in the at least the short term past. But it was definitely a back and forth, and defensively we usually control things a little bit better, but today they got a good offense, like I said, and they got some weapons over there.
Spencer Funnell said it's about time that the offense stepped up for the defense when they needed it. Kenny, what does that mean to you to be able to have an offense that does continue to kind of answer that?
Yeah, well, that's a credit to Spencer, first of all, and the kind of person he is, and he's a competitor, and he's a team guy all the way. And our offense has done pretty good this year. I mean, we're first or second in the league in a lot of categories, and they've really, when you consider how much we struggled last year, I mean, the turnaround has been remarkable. So very proud of those guys.
When you brought Bird in for Devin, was that because Devin was hurt, or just because you were needing his spark?
Devin's a little bit beat up. There's no secret about that. That's no secret. And but he's a competitor. He's a warrior. He goes out, unless he absolutely can't function at all, he's going to want to play. And he wasn't his normal self tonight, but good enough to go out and do some good things. But Bird, it's great to have Bird, in the bullpen in the event that we need him.
Kyle, how much is there, maybe not a concern, but just not wanting to overwork Devin during a week, knowing that you need to get him to Saturday?
Yeah, that's every week we do that. That's a plan that we lay out, and it'll be the same this week, where he takes a lot of just mental reps, especially early in the week, and then we start to integrate him in as we get deeper into the week.
Just a quick follow-up. Do you need to see like a certain percentage of Devin during the week just to know that he is capable?
No, we just need him on game day to say I'm ready to go, because he knows this offense inside and out, as I've said many times, and the reps for him, even if they're just mental or even just not moving, but just taking the snap and going through his progression. He's a guy that he's a veteran, and if he didn't feel like he could help us win, then he'd let us know.
Is he doing any physical work during the week?
Some weeks no, some weeks yes. Yeah, I can say this: if we had to have played last Saturday, if we hadn't had a bye, he would not have been able to play. So that's without a doubt. He just wasn't ready.
Obviously, Devin and Bird seem like they have a pretty close relationship. Just speak to the unselfishness of Dev. When you go and call Bird's number and you're splitting out Devin wide or Bird wide, what does that mean in terms of his leadership, his unselfishness, and just the leadership in the locker room? Yeah,
well, that's who he is. He's an absolute team guy as well. We got a bunch of guys that are just I can't pick out a selfish player on this football team and say this guy needs to come to the party a little bit as far as being a team guy. It's a bunch of guys all pulling in the same direction, caring more about the team than they do about themselves. And that's we say we have a lot of slogans, I guess, and fall in love with the team, not yourself. And that's what these guys have done.
Quick follow-up. Was there a decision made at halftime to kind of put Bird and get him more involved in the offense?
Yep,
and
there was.
Did you sort of walk him through that decision?
Well, I was in with the offensive staff, and and Devin was doing what he could do, but Bird, he's a weapon, especially in that Q run game, and we just decided that, hey, let's a little higher dose of Bird in this second half, and proved to be helpful.
How was Bird sort of growing up? Not necessarily over the course of the season, but week to week, how he learns, how he processes. Oh yeah,
he's maturing and becoming more seasoned every single week, and he has not had a game that he was inserted where the stage was too big. He's responded well every single time he's been in the game, and so like I said, the moment is not too big for Bird, and he's going to be a really good one.
Kyle, was there anything in particular that really caused you fits on the defensive side, especially secondary?
Well, just the fade balls. It's you throw out those 50-50 balls, and we didn't make enough of a percentage of them, for our liking. They're going to connect on some. Like I said, that receiving core is outstanding, and the tight end, you're going to be seeing him play on Sunday for a long time. But that we got to do a little better job of winning more of the 50-50 balls, at least tonight.
there was a scuffle during the game. What do you do with that after the fact, and kind of what has happened after that?
Yeah, well, they both got personal fouls. The Scooby, I think, is the one you're talking about down in the, I don't know where north and south is, that end zone, whatever, our locker room end zone. But Scooby lost his cool a little bit, and obviously the other guy had something to do with it as well, or he wouldn't have got flagged. So we'll sort that out, and I don't know if that means that Scooby's out for the first half of the next game. He does? Well, that sucks. Okay, well, yeah. So we'll, heat of the moment, competitive, but you got to keep it cool. I'm not making excuses for Scooby. I can't. I don't know enough about the situation right now to tell you a definitive course of action for us, but we'll find out.
There you go. That is Kyle Whittingham addressing the media after a 55-28 blowout win in Waco at Baylor. Couple interesting comments there, Alex. Of course, there at the end talking about Elijah Scooby Davis. Sounds like he is going to miss the first half of next week's game against Kansas State. Kyle Whittingham put it bluntly, that sucks. And yeah, as I brought up earlier, like this is a team that is really beat up in the defensive backfield. The last thing you want is losing another player, not to injury, but to suspension because he did something stupid. He started, I don't know what was said. Yeah. Coach doesn't know either, but he started the fight by throwing the punch. And that's what matters.
That's what matters. And I think Whittingham puts it best, right? There's no excuses. You can't get caught up in the heat of the moment like that. You can't get caught up in the competition like that. You put your team in a bad position, right? Because you are the starting corner for your team for that defense, right? And now you unfortunately have to sit out the first half of the next game, right? You're putting your brothers, you're putting your teammates in a rough spot because of that scuffle. It's obviously like Whittingham says, we don't know the details, but it is just it's a bad mistake from Scooby Davis. Horrible mistake. You cannot get caught up in the heat of the moment like that.
You're an older player. You are supposed to be smarter than that. You're supposed
to be one of those leaders on that defense, man.
You've got to be better than that. And considering what's at stake for Utah, that is a horrible, horrible decision. Horrible look. I also want to quickly, before we wrap, Whittingham says Devin Dampier would not have been able to play last week if they had a game instead of a bye.
Interesting.
That's interesting because he keeps bringing up that Dampier has been banged up, and we know that. We know that's been a storyline. We know there have been several weeks where he doesn't practice until Wednesday or Thursday, or maybe even Friday. I don't know. And he still started most games. I know Ficklin did have the one start, but apparently he got beat up so bad against Cincinnati that if they would have had a game last week, Devin Dampier would not have played. So that's interesting. I don't know how much of this to read into because of how much injuries are kind of hid and not talked about specifically with the Utah program.
Right.
But, I don't know. What do you think of that?
I wonder if you look at this Baylor game and almost ultimately think about sitting him entirely in this one too, then if that's the case.
Kansas State.
No, this game. Obviously.
After what happened tonight. Okay.
Right. After hearing that and hearing the comments of Kyle Whittingham, right. If go back a little bit to that Colorado game, that conversation we had there, right, you see enough from this team on tape where you feel comfortable starting Bert Ficklin, maybe that's the decision you make, and you allow a little bit more rest for Devin Dampier. Again, I think it's unfortunate that we're having this conversation after the bye week. I think the hope was for Devin to be closer to 100% following the bye week, but I guess now we're learning that's just not the case.
What's interesting to me, though, just adding up what we know, when he left the game today, when Dampier left the game today, they said he sprinted to the locker room.
Yeah.
We know the injury that he's been dealing with earlier in the year was an ankle.
Yeah.
If you hurt your ankle, I wouldn't think that you sprint to the locker room. And I'm just speculating here. Okay. I want to be transparent with that. I don't know. I'm just speculating. That makes me wonder if he suffered a different injury either today or against Cincinnati or during practice at some point. Because, if you aggravate an ankle injury, you're not going to sprint to the locker room. I wouldn't think.
Right.
But regardless, I mean, we don't know. We probably won't know. But that doesn't open up an interesting door, as you're saying, Alex, where Bert Ficklin, the backup, comes in and runs for 2 60-plus yard touchdowns.
Yeah.
And he's done it before. He looked really good against Colorado. If Dampier is so beat up, that does open up that.
And I think that opens up questions, right, heading down towards the final 2 games of, one, obviously his health, and 2, do you potentially look at sitting him against a Kansas or a Kansas State?
Yeah.
And making sure that he's rested up, because again, there is still the potential of you making, having a really good shot at making that playoff. There's still the potential of a Big 12 championship game. And so obviously I think in those situations you want a Devin Dampier as closest to 100% as you can possibly get him. And so I wonder if, that's something they continue. Obviously it'll be something they continue to monitor, but I wonder if that is something that it gets to a point where they make a decision of maybe you'll sit against Kansas State, maybe you'll sit against Kansas. We'll see that final game of the season. We'll see.
And yeah, if we take all these comments at face value, I wouldn't be surprised if Pickman gets another start next week. We will see Utah at home next week against Kansas State.
Also, to kind of put a positive spin on it, massive credit to Devin for not going through practice for majority of the week and then coming in and basically giving the thumbs up on game day and saying, look, I'm ready to go, and still being able to put up these type of performances, man. Obviously today it's a little bit more subpar, but obviously the Cincinnati game, I thought he played excellent. Obviously in that Arizona State game, he looked fantastic. And so there is a little credit due there to Devin Dampier for being able to go through that.
Leadership wise, it's huge. And you got to remember that it's not just about who makes the best plays on the field. And sometimes it is, right? Because that's what leads to points and that's what ultimately matters. But in games like this and in the situation that Utah's in, they need leadership. And this is Devin Dampier's football team, frankly. It is. And I know that Bird has been excellent at times when he has been able to go in there and shine, but Devin Dampier is the captain of this football team, and I think to bench him flat out would be a mistake. So yeah, it speaks to his leadership. It speaks to his toughness and his resilience to go out there and fight. And then when you are a teammate, as long as he's not dragging you down, right, as long as he's not holding you back, when you see that, that does fire you up a little bit. So you're right, Alex. Definitely credit to Devin Dampier. Offensive MVP tonight?
Give it to the man, Bird Ficklin, man.
Okay.
Coming in, he provided that spark. I think ultimately, those two long touchdowns, I think, are the ultimate knockout punch for Baylor. Obviously they kept fighting, but I think those two really kind of put the game away for Utah in the sense that they were able to extend the score to what they did. Give the MVP to Bird Ficklin.
Defensive MVP. Do you think anybody qualifies? Again, they gave up over 500 yards, 563 yards of offense today. Only 28 points, but did anybody have a standout game on defense? I know that Elijah Davis had the pick 6, but he also got roasted in coverage and then ejected for starting a fight. So that disqualifies him from this award.
You know what, man? Obviously, right, you don't get the ejection. I think we're probably talking about Elijah Davis being the MVP just for having that pick 6. But since nobody else really stood out, Trey Reynolds, good job coming in, right? He's second stringer at that linebacker position, but he comes in, steps up, makes a big play, gets the second INT of the game, and really, really puts this one away for Utah.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah. That's fair. Shout out to the young dude getting the pick. That's always nice. So, all right, I think that about does it for us. Another big win for Utah. They continue to roll 55-28 over Baylor. They return home next week against Kansas State. Kick time has not been announced. That will probably come out tomorrow afternoon, I'm assuming. So we will see on that. But regardless of what time it is, Alex, you and I will be here with another edition of the Ute Postgame Show. So thank you to everybody for tuning in. Of course, remember to tune into the KSL Sports Zone all week for all the coverage and then read all the stories at kslsports.com. Until then, for Alex, for Sean producing, shout out to him. Another tremendous job. I am Christian. We'll catch you next week. It's the Ute Postgame Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.